I'm Chris,
And I'm Kylie. And this is Redefining Resilience,
where we explore what it means to build a resilient lifestyle
so you can thrive in any and every situation. All right, we're talking about change today.
flexibility and change, actually.
They kind of go hand in hand.
They do.
I think flexibility is the skill that we need in order to deal with change
Yeah.
effectively.
All right, so you want to give us the dictionary definition to some of these?
Yeah, flexibility is the ability to be easily modified, the quality of bending easily without breaking, and the willingness to change or compromise. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah. In this context, yes, this is what flexibility means. So it's really interesting because the body, we try to, since it's a big giant defense mechanism, flexibility is like a press on the defense mechanism. It doesn't want to necessarily do that right away. It wants to avoid it.
Yeah.
So
Our brain is hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And that is a universal principle that we can apply in any situation. So when we think about change, most of the time when we think about it, it's perceived as being something that is painful. We want to avoid it.
well, unforeseen barriers or problems or places we've never been are scary. And our body understands we've not seen that. That's why we're scared of the dark. We slow down when we're in the dark. It's because our body's trying to take in everything around us as fast as it can to avoid injury.
I don't know why this example popped into my head, but a while back I got a notice on my door saying that my lease was up in my apartment, and because they're renovating all of the units, I was going to have to move at the end of my lease to a new unit. And immediately my brain went to, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I have to pack up all my shit and I'm forced to move into a new unit and this is going to be awful. That was immediately where my brain went. But calm down a little bit and think through rationally a little bit later, I actually got to upgrade my apartment to a bigger apartment because of that. And it ended up working great because the new apartment was a remodeled unit and bigger. So it was a much better situation for me in the long run, but that is not where my brain immediately went. And also, while I was moving, because you moved most of my stuff, I was in tears the day we had to move because I just don't like the change. The change was so stressful for me to deal with.
So a little caveat to this, if you want to hear a fucking hilarious story,
Oh, God.
reach out to us and we'll explain the whole moving story. It's pretty funny, but we're not going to go down that road. Why do you think your brain went to worst case scenario when you read that notice?
I mean, it's natural, right? Because my brain didn't want the pain of change. I started to immediately envision all the stuff that I had to move and how was I going to do this and how am I going to, I have to pay for movers and, the whole 9 yards. And then I have to move. I have to change my address on everything. This is such a pain in the ass. Like, I don't have time. I'm so busy. I'm traveling all the time. Like, when am I going to be able to do this? Like, and I don't even know how soon this is going to have to happen. Like, I didn't even pay attention to any of the details of this scenario. I saw the notice on my door. It was like, oh, shoot, I'm either getting evicted or they have something to tell me. And lo and behold, it was that I had to move. And it was immediate panic. Like, my brain didn't think, oh, wow, this is exciting. It just doesn't do that.
So it's natural, even for somebody that studies this and focuses on resilience and NLP and brain wiring and everything else, to go immediately to worst case scenario.
Yes, at this point in time, I am not a superhero, so I still am prone to human tendencies, like freaking the fuck out when change happens. Yes. And then once I calmed down and I scheduled a meeting with the office, talked to them about what my options were, found out I could get into a bigger unit, have my own office, yay me. Like, then it became a little bit more exciting, but still had to work myself through the pain of hiring the movers, dealing with that whole moving situation, which didn't go perfectly smoothly, as Chris was alluding to moments ago. You can get the inside scoop if you send us a message. We'll tell you all about that. It's quite the story. But yeah, my brain just, it's not thinking about like, how is this going to be a good thing?
Well, it's not doing that because it's not built to do that. So this is a perfect example of the limbic system taking over your fight or flight. Your brain says, okay, potential pain and injury and problems. Let me file through all the potential pain and injury and problems as fast as possible to prepare myself for them. Once I'm prepared, then I can make decisions. It's built to be a defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. That's okay. That's why when setbacks happen to me, it takes me several minutes to go, okay, breathe, relax, let's work through it. Extreme frustration sometimes. I recently have had an extreme frustration scenario.
So you want to tell us about your broken toes?
We can.
Assuming that is the scenario you're referring to.
Yes. So in 22 days, I'm competing in nationals in Denver. Nationals is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's national level competition.
You've literally been working all year to qualify and go there.
So I was at the gym 2 days ago, and I set a pair of dumbbells down and looked to the left, looked back to the right, and the dumbbell rolled off and crushed my big toe and my toe next to it. And I was absolutely furious. I could not see straight. I was so mad. I threw the dumbbell across the gym, grabbed my shit, and walked out. And it was super swollen in my shoe, and I didn't want to take my shoe off in case there was like blood everywhere or like a part of my toe. So I made it home, and I was so mad that like my eyes were watering. I was like ready to hurt people. And I'm like, here we go, man. I'm losing my whole fucking shot at nationals. It's all down the fucking pooper because a 50-pound dumbbell crushes my toes. Like, what a dumb fucking scenario. And I put my foot in the bathtub for a little bit and just sat there and just was furious. Like, I was getting so hot that I could like feel the heat coming out of my collar, you know?
You sweat through your shirt.
Yeah, I was furious. So then I laid down, I put my foot up, and I just relaxed. It's like, okay, man, how many times have you broken your toes? I've broken every toe on my foot multiple times. And it's like, okay, this is fine. At the end of the day, worst case scenario, one of the events is a yoke carry. I'll pick it up, move it 2 feet, put it down. Who cares? You know, thus is life. And then I'll do great in the other ones.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily need it. But there's no point in wasting energy and time focusing on what could happen. Now it's time to focus on how to get past where we are.
And I'll be honest, when this all went down, selfishly, I was like, oh, damn it, I just booked these plane tickets and now I'm going to have to change our flights and cancel this trip. I was immediately going to, how's this going to affect me? What kind of change do I need to prepare for? Because of this scenario.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, put my own feelings aside for a second and comforted you in your time of need. And, you know, that's when we were able to like rationalize our way through. Okay, you have 4 weeks. This is probably going to be healed by then. Like, let's think through this. How is this going to affect your training? And you planned it out. I mean, you still went to the gym today.
Yeah, not only did I go to the gym today, I hit a PR. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, not in anything involving the foot. It was bench press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still feel good, though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I got to use my feet to bench, so.
Well, and okay, go back to the definition of flexibility. It's bending without breaking. I mean, you broke your toes, yes, but you did not completely say, okay, well, my strongman career is over. I'm done. Fuck this noise. Like, can't deal with this change. You just said, like, okay, this is something I have to adapt to, and I have to be flexible right now because I don't have a choice. Like, you don't have a choice but to accept the reality that you have a couple broken toes and it's a minor setback, but it's not anything that's going to break you or prohibit you from carrying on to the next part of your journey in strongman.
It's actually a cool story, to be totally honest. I think it's funny. I think it's funny now, but that's just part of the beauty of the whole journey. You know, the silly shit that happens along the way. This is a perfect example of controlled and uncontrolled variables.
Yeah.
Broken toes are uncontrolled variables, but I am in so much, I have so much control over all the other ones. My food, my training, my recovery, like my coach is on board with everything. Everything is very filed through. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, honestly, if I think about it, 4 weeks out, I get 4 weeks of rest. I'm not going to be any stronger in 4 weeks. I get to go in and enjoy lifting for 4 weeks and see what happens.
Yeah. So there are ways that we can handle change effectively. So what we need to do is reframe how we think about change.
A lot of people I talk to think that when they're older, change will stop. They will figure everything out and then they will be able to control all the changes. Problem is that is an absolute fallacy. 100% wrong. Change happens all the time.
It's happening more now than it ever has because technology is changing so fucking fast. Like, we have AI-powered technology at this point. It is so much smarter than we even realize. AI learns so quickly. Like, the changes we're about to experience now moving forward are going to be just exponential growth. And technology is going to be changing faster than ever. Our ability to adapt and respond to the technology is going to have to change. And how we view change is going to be the crucial differentiator between the people that keep up and the people that get left behind.
I think that's with every advancement in mankind. I mean, there are people that live in eastern Kentucky that think the coal mines are coming back. Like, they refuse to believe that the world is changing. Yeah. Refuse to believe it. Yeah. Now they live in the hills with no power, and it's like, that's fine. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do with your life, but just understand that's what happens whenever you refuse to change. You refuse to be adaptable and have zero flexibility.
Well, and just look at, like, I remember in 8th grade computer class, we had to learn how to type. And there were people that just refused to learn the home row keys. And I don't know if that's still what they're called these days, but it's like where you put your fingers on the keyboard so that you can access all of the different letters, right? And punctuation. And there were people that wanted to hunt and peck with just their pointer fingers and thought that their way of doing it was going to be enough. And if you look at those people now, one, they probably still can't type. And their life is so much harder because every task that they have to do on the computer then takes 10x the amount of time that it would take me to type something out because I learned the home row keys.
Did you have that little orange cover that went over the top whenever you had a test so you couldn't see the letters?
No.
It's like a gummy piece that went over the top. Yeah, I had that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my
I can
God.
still do the alphabet without even thinking about it.
No, we had to type this manuscript about the Kankakee River Valley. I will never forget I had to learn about the Kankakee River. And, like, can we at least get some interesting subject matter to type up here?
I think they just wanted to use the word Kankakee.
Yeah.
And have you type that?
I think so.
How do you even spell that? Don't worry about it. It's too hard. My brain will hurt if I try to.
It starts with the same letters as a canker sore, so... I think that tells you about how cool it is.
Wow.
Okay, so going back, let's reframe change. So first thing when it comes to change is prepare. Like, we forget that we can actually take proactive steps to prevent change from blowing up in our face. So if you were to go back and say, okay, were there things that you could have done differently to better prepare for dumbbells falling off the bench?
Yeah, 100%. And I actually told myself, don't put these fucking dumbbells on this bench because they're going to roll off. And I did. I was being a dodo.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a prime example of how preparation actually is a change management strategy. You're just doing it on the front end instead of the back end.
So how can we prepare for change, like in our work?
Well, one, I think it's not taking the change personally.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I think a lot of times it's like, let's imagine that you were relying on your teammate to get something done on time for work, and they email you saying, hey, I'm going to be late. I was dealing with a sick kid all day yesterday, so I didn't get as much done as I thought I would. And so I'm going to be a day late. And now you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing this to me. And I'm going to have to tell the client that we're going to be late getting this project done. This is a disaster. Like, I can't believe that they're doing this to me. Well, one, that person is not doing anything to you directly. You're having to deal with something as a byproduct of a situation that's outside of your control. So one, I think we can't take anything personally. Like, my gut reaction when you broke your toes was like, I just booked these flights. I can't believe you're making more work for me. Well, that is irrational and super selfish of me, first off, to think, because poor Chris is crying in pain. And it looked really bad. Like, it looks really bad. If you also want to see pictures of his toes, just shoot me a message. We'll get you the evidence. But yeah,
they're not that bad.
Not anymore. It's definitely gone down quite a bit. But you dropping dumbbells on your toes, you didn't do that in order to punish me. That's not a logical leap. So first thing we have to do is recognize that any change you're dealing with, like let's say your company announces a merger, they're not merging with another company to upset Susan in HR. Like, they're merging with another company because it's a strategic move that's going to benefit the company in the long run, right? Like, it has nothing to do with you. So just know that the situations you're probably having to adapt to are not personal. So I would say that's the first thing. Second thing we have to do is then accept the fact that the change has happened. You could be mad that the dumbbells fell on your foot all the livelong day, but until you accept the fact that the dumbbell has fallen on your foot and you have to get over it, like, you can't get over it until you actually accept the fact that, like, okay, it is what it is. It's done. I can't change gravity or the fact that this has happened. So I'm going to have to just accept it and figure out how to move forward in a constructive way.
Yeah, I can't unbreak my toes. You can't undo change. Change is, one, it's inevitable. So I think when we talk about preparation, it's more so communication, especially in the workforce. I know that when I worked for companies, my number one goal was always to be best friends with HR.
Yeah.
Because if anything was coming down the pipe, HR was going to let me know right away. If it was going to affect me and we were best friends, shout out to Janetta. She was awesome. The best HR lady I've ever worked with. She would always let me know.
Yeah.
Any kind of change coming down the pipe, I was one of the first ones to hear about it. But it made it a little easier to deal with, but it didn't make me happy every time. So I still had to deal with the emotional whiplash of, well, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But it, like you said, it's not intentional to harm Christopher Ewing on purpose. There's a business that I work for that's trying to make decisions that are best for the whole so the business can be productive. And that's their reasoning.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if that doesn't align with your goals or vision, you are more than welcome to move. You know, like that's part of preparation. If the company decides to do something completely opposite of what they were built for or what you aligned yourself with them for, then move on. What a great opportunity to figure out how to not waste any more time.
Well, and before you even go to that place, find clarity. Yeah. Right? So I have to give kudos. My friend Marissa and I were talking last week, and she found out that her boss was going to be changing. So roles were shifting around and she was going to be getting a new boss. And she said something I think that's super mature and really cool. She's like, well, I'm not happy about the change, but I'm okay with this because it's going to give me new opportunities to learn from someone else. And I really like who my new boss is going to be. So, you know, if there's anybody else in the company I'd want to report to, I'm glad it's her. And she really embraced the change in a positive way. And that's not easy to do. You get very comfortable in your structure, in your environment. And this is a significant interruption to her environment. And she chose to look at it as a positive thing instead of saying, oh, well, she doesn't get me, or she doesn't understand my role, or she hasn't known me long enough to know, or, you know, any number of negative things that could have come up. And then you can start to ask the questions like, okay, how is this going to affect my day-to-day responsibilities? Like, how is this going to change my reporting structure? How is this going to change accountability for me? How is this going to mean I can't meet with you still, old boss? Like, you start to get clarity and ask the questions. Like, instead of me, like, going back to the broken toe example, I immediately jump to, now I'm going to have to cancel travel plans. And instead of, like, chilling out, right, I jumped to that and then had to remind myself, okay, hold on. I don't even know that he can't compete still. So let's talk through, do you think in 4 weeks you're going to be able to compete? And you're like, yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. Now I don't have to change travel plans, right? Like, so immediately I'm thinking about how this is going to impact me. And I jumped to a bunch of conclusions that weren't true, but based on assumptions. And so that's what our brain wants to do when we don't have all the information. We jump to a bunch of assumptions.
Well, it does that because it wants to fill in the gaps as fast as it can for you. It's just a safety mechanism. Like, I don't want to put myself in a position, my brain doesn't want to put myself in a position or itself in a position that it's going to get hurt. So it says, based on my experiences in life so far, these are the possible outcomes. And based on the possible outcomes that I've experienced, here's are the worst ones. So I can't watch videos of guys getting hurt in the gym. I can't watch it because it feeds into my reality. My reality then becomes X amount of times I've done this movement, I've seen X amount of people get hurt. If it's 1 out of 100, it's still 1 out of 100 I've seen get injured. So I just can't give myself, no matter what it is, working out, relationships, I can't give myself a false reality of potential issues. I have to be very careful with what I take in, very careful with what I watch, because you can't be around negative things and not have those be a defense mechanism, because your brain wants to keep that from you.
Yeah.
It wants to avoid it.
Yeah, your brain is just trying to protect you at the end of the day. So it's trying to think worst case scenario so that it can brace you for impact. And once you find the clarity, then you can start to say, okay, let me rationally think through the situation at hand and maintain perspective. So that's the last thing. Like, does this really matter in the grand scheme of things? Okay, so you think about it. You're probably going to go to nationals a few times.
Yeah, I hope.
I mean, it's part of the process to qualify for World's Strongest Man. So you're going to have to go to nationals a few times till you get the ranking that qualifies you for the next stage. Mm-hmm. So you think about it like, does this broken toe really impact your trajectory?
Yeah, not at all.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to compete at nationals 1 or 2 more times, qualify for World's Strongest Man, and that was going to be the process anyway.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This just gives you another opportunity at nationals and, honestly, a little less pressure, if you think about it.
I mean, that's where I landed today. I'm on my way to the gym listening to music, and I'm like, fuck it, man. I get to go have a good time. I have zero pressure on me right now. I cannot do the things that are the hardest to do. So I'm just going to go have a good time bench pressing. You know, I love to bench press. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I had a great time.
Yeah.
But I think what we end up doing is we view change with a lens of fear right up front.
Yep.
But change is the most beneficial thing. It's the catalyst for growth. If you have the same stimulus all the time, you will not grow.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a ever-changing, ever-accelerating, progressive stimulus. If it's not, you become stagnant. And there's no such thing as maintenance. You don't become zero and just exist. You actually go backwards because we're in time, and time is always moving, and there's all these variables moving with time. You decide to stop changing. My parents live in a really small town called Benton, Kentucky. Very small. My dad's a Southern Baptist preacher, and he's got a couple people in his church that are lost in time. They refuse to have internet. They refuse to have computers. Cell phones are the devil. Like, they really think that any technology opens the door for evil, and they are lost. It is like talking to a caveman. Mm-hmm. They just cannot fathom that there are other things out there. Everything's paid in cash. Banks are evil. It's like, of course, that's like a far end of the spectrum perspective or example, but that's not too far off what happens to us. And it happens very fast. Mm-hmm. And it's happening faster as we get older because technology is speeding up. And if technology speeds up, learning speeds up. And if learning speeds up and we're stopping change, we're getting left in the dust, man.
Well, the problem is when you close your mind off to change and you immediately go to worst case scenario and change is terrifying to you, you're going to start closing your mind too. It's called open-mindedness for a reason. Your mind has to be open to changing its mind, right? Like, the danger in not embracing change is that we become humans with fixed mindsets, and then we're not open-minded to new ideas, trying new things, new people, new activities. I mean, the fastest way to get yourself stuck and stay there is to stop embracing change.
We just look at any athlete, right? Kobe Bryant wasn't born with a basketball. He had to ask himself what he wanted, change his current reality, and become what he was. I mean, anybody that's done anything great is pressing the envelope of change. Anybody that does anything above baseline is pressing change. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely unacceptable to me to look at life and say, I refuse to be a part of the process and I know everything. Because once you stop changing, you've told the world and everybody in it that you know enough and I don't want to know anymore. I've got all the info I need to live life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And make decisions in a world that's changing. That's the craziest part to me. Not only do I know everything, it doesn't fucking matter what everybody else knows and what change happens around me because I'm too fucking smart for everybody and I know everything.
Yep.
That's how you end up having somebody yell at a little girl like Emma at Olive Garden because she knows everything. It's like, absolutely not. That's crazy. But that's what happens.
And our brains are not designed to stay stuck like that. Our brains are neuroplastic. We have neuroplasticity that allows new neurons to be formed and connect with other neurons. And so we are specifically designed to grow and evolve as humans. And so not being open to change is something that is actually going to stunt your cognitive growth.
Change is like the epitome of growth. They're like interchangeable words.
Yeah.
So to say I don't want to change means I don't want to grow.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying to me.
It is scary. Well, it's scary the outcome of having that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. You get buried pretty fast. The world's spinning pretty quick.
So I want to talk about how change can be beneficial.
Oh, yeah. I got some cool quotes.
So we found a bunch of quotes that really resonated with us because I think when people can poetically explain things, it sticks. I don't know. So innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. Steve Jobs said that. I think he's credible.
Supposedly Steve Jobs said it. The Googler said he said it.
Yeah, the Googler said he said it.
The next one is when things change inside you, things change around you.
Yeah, and I love that one because law of attraction is a real thing.
Yeah, unarguable.
It's real. So when you change what's going on inside your head, you're actually also changing your reality outside of you. You're changing the way you perceive the world around you. You're changing the way you perceive the people you associate with. You heal your deepest, darkest inner wounds, and you're going to look at the world through a totally different lens. When we don't heal our inner wounds, we start to look at the world through a jaded lens and a jaded perspective. So you think about it like how we operate internally is a direct reflection of what's going on externally, which means if you don't like what's going on around you, you have to change something internally.
I mean, really, that's the only control you have in life. It's how you respond to things.
Yeah.
I mean, if you change the talk tracks in your brain, what you tell yourself, what the little Christopher Ewing between my shoulders is saying, it changes the world. Mm-hmm. Because then I view it differently and I perceive intentions differently. I don't think everybody's trying to fight me and beat me up and be mean. Life isn't happening to me.
Yeah.
It's happening for me.
Yeah. So I like the next one, right along the same lines. Your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change.
Yeah, I like that one a lot because it's true.
Well, and you think about it, in order to intentionally grow, you have to intentionally take steps towards growth. I mean, it's pretty common sense. Like if you want to get more fit, you're not going to get more fit by wishing it. You're going to get more fit by going to the gym, not dropping dumbbells on your feet, and eating right and sleeping right? Doing all the things that we know to be true and effective when it comes to health and fitness.
Do you know what's super funny about this concept? Is that people think they can avoid change by avoiding movement and avoiding doing things. The problem is, in their avoidance, they're changing in a negative way. Mm-hmm. So you have an option of positive change, anabolic growth, or negative change, catabolic growth. You're either growing or dying. That is it. So pick your change, man. I'd rather pick the change that's going north, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it, like you try growing plants. I mean, they're either growing and getting bigger or they're dying and wilting and browning their leaves. And I mean, they're dying.
Slowly falling off as our French bulldogs dig in the mud?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The poor money tree.
Well, we got too many trees. One's doing really good.
I know. One's on the fritz. I don't know what that means for us from a wealth perspective, but.
This means we're killing it.
Yeah.
We're really good French bulldog owners.
We're killing the plant. That's for fucking sure.
All right. People change for two reasons. Either their minds have been opened or their hearts have been broken.
That's a deep one.
Our brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what we tell it. Mm-hmm. If you're hurt, say somebody breaks up with you and breaks your heart, you don't look at relationships the same for a while. You're very broken. Mm-hmm. It jades your perspective. Why? Because it's a defense mechanism. You do not want to feel that again, so you are quote-unquote jaded. You're just very, very armored up when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I think we have all these concepts and sayings like put a wall up, this and that, like you're just hurt and your mind is doing all it can to prevent the same scenario.
Well, and if you think about it, like you can wait to get broken up with because you know, maybe are not taking initiative in your life, you're unhappy with your career, you're not making enough money to pay your bills, yada, yada. And somebody might get fed up with that. Like if you're in a relationship and those are the things that you're constantly stressed about, at some point someone's going to say, okay, fix it or I'm going to have to go. And if they choose to leave you, you're now forced because of a broken heart to change your circumstances. Versus if you looked at that same situation and said, hey, you know what? I don't like the life that I have right now. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to see what other jobs are out there that might get me a pay increase, or I'm going to talk to my boss about how I can transition into a new role with more compensation. And you know what? I think I'm going to start working out because that's going to help me think more clearly and, get my fitness goals in order. I mean, you have those choices. If you do not like the life you're in, you can wait until it forces you to make a change because inevitably that's what happens. Or you could take the initiative on your own and recognize, hey, if something's not working for me, I probably need to own it. I probably need to take the initiative and do something different.
So my favorite saying on the planet is nobody's here to save you. There's no white knights, man. They don't exist. You can't just fuck around all your whole life waiting for somebody to come get you from your problems.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. In fact, it's not built that way because you would be a useless human. You have to embrace change. You have to embrace hardship. You have to embrace the scary feeling of something new because you have to grow. You have to develop. You have to change. And that white knight is you. Every time you look in the mirror, that's the one that's coming to save you, bro. That person, the one living between your ears, has been there. Yeah. He's waiting. She's waiting to help you. You just got to embrace it.
I think this last quote is really good. And Wayne Dyer said this next one: change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. I have a perfect example of this. A couple years ago, I was feeling super burnt out, super stressed. I was traveling all the time for work. I just felt like I was burning the candle at both ends and gaining weight. I was not as healthy as I would have liked to have been, but I was making up all these excuses about why I couldn't work out because I traveled so much, yada, yada. At some point, I think it was like New Year's Eve-ish time when everybody's thinking about resolutions and I'm thinking about like, what do I want for myself for this next year? I said, I want less stress. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to get there? Like, how can I have a life with less stress? Because unless I change my job, I don't see that happening. I'm like, okay, well, I already go get massages, so I don't know what else I can be doing to manage the stress once it's here. So my only alternative here is to manage what I view as stressful. I told myself I have to change the way I look at things. I have to look at the things that I think are, quote, stressful as just part of the process. I was stressing out about packing every time I had a trip. I was stressed out about getting laundry done in between my trips. I was stressed out about planning and preparing for what I'm coaching and training people on when I go take my trips. I was stressed out about my dog and getting my dog, what is it called? Child care, but dog care? Like child care for my dog. I stressed out about having to pick up a rental car to go drive to the location. I mean, literally every part of the process that was rinse and repeat, because all of this stuff was part of what it takes to travel for your work. So at some point I told myself like, okay, if this was a fun trip that I was taking, would I look at this differently? Well, yeah, I probably wouldn't be as stressed packing. So I have the power to change my outlook on how I'm viewing this stuff. And so from that point on, I just worked at making all of those things as efficient as possible. Like I would keep my makeup already packed up in a bag. So that was one less thing that I had to stress about packing. I would have staple clothes. I'd wear the same things in different colors and just rotate the colors. So I never really had to think about what clothes to pack. I started meal prepping and getting my meal prepped food from Clean Eats. And so I'd have food already prepped and ready to go so that when I was coming home from the trips, I didn't have to spend time meal prepping. So like all these little things I started to figure out how to get a little bit more efficient at so that they weren't as stressful. So go back to what helps prevent some of the stress we feel from change. It's preparation. That was my solution for a lot of this. And then when things went wrong, I mean, I'm telling you, like a lot of things went wrong when I was traveling. I got my rental car broken into. That was a nightmare. And then on the same trip driving home, I got a speeding ticket. So I was all sorts of frustrated with the shit that was coming at me that I really hadn't prepared for, but still had to deal with. But knowing that I had all of these other things taken care of made my ability to handle those things a lot easier. So I think the question for everybody to reflect on is, how do you view change?
So there's also an exercise, we talked about it earlier in the vision domain, I think is extremely beneficial. It's called the Controlled Uncontrolled Variables worksheet. I built it a while ago for some of my athletes. I just have one column that says controlled variables, one that says uncontrolled variables, and I just have you list every single fucking thing that you have control over. That's brushing your teeth, that's combing your hair, that's making your bed, that's doing the laundry. Because what happens is we don't view those as little victories. We don't view them as things we can control, and they don't make any sense or have any kind of bearing on our life. The problem is they compound little tiny snowballs at a time. And when something uncontrolled happens, now you're behind on your laundry, added to that. Now you're behind on cleaning, added to that. Now you're behind on washing the sheets or taking the dog somewhere or cleaning your house. All the bullshit that you can do and take care of and be structured with and control will either ruin or make your life. Whenever I broke this toe, I don't have any changes that I have to make to my life. It's very structured and I enjoy it. I mean, honestly, it just slows me down, which is good because then I can think a little bit more and I'm not just hauling ass everywhere.
Okay, no one has ever said you haul ass anywhere.
No. So I move speedily
slowly.
for a big guy.
You move slowly. You also drive slowly.
Because I can control it. I don't get speeding tickets because I can control that.
Yes.
I don't get in wrecks because I can control it.
I know.
That's just something is not worth my time. So all this being said, I think that's a great exercise to show yourself what you have control over and prepare for the uncontrolled variables. My daughter's getting sick, getting in a car wreck, getting a speeding ticket. Some things like that just happen. You might have just a shitty cop that's like on a bad fucking day and you did something silly and you get a ticket for it. That just happens. That's uncontrolled. So once you list them, you can see, okay, cool. I might have 15 uncontrolled variables that really aren't going to present themselves that often, but I have 100 things I'm in control over. So really, honestly, at the end of the day, I got this life. I control it.
Yeah. And you might even use this exercise the next time or right now if you're dealing with some kind of change. Think about the change that you're dealing with and write down what the controlled variables are and the uncontrolled variables. And then work through that reframing process where you go find clarity, put things in perspective. Think about why this could be a good thing.
And if you're really frustrated, communicate that.
Talk to somebody.
I know I talk to my bosses every single time something come down the pipe that I was like concerned about or confused about, or I understood everything about it, but I wanted to verify it. That's okay. You're in control, man. You're white knight. So if you don't take care of you, ain't nobody else going to do it.
Amen.
Thanks for listening to Redefining Resilience.
To learn more about building your mental and physical readiness, check out odysseyresilience.org.
And follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.